A lot of the time, it won't make sense to take advice from people who are not where you are trying to go, either directionally or in terms of absolute position. So I had an interview with my cousin quite a while back, um, and basically he said he didn't want to be like his teachers or his parents. Um, so why would he listen to them, for advice? And this kind of resonated with me because, our financial planning teacher in high school was still paying off his student loans in his 40s, you know, um, but he was giving us financial advice. And it just got me thinking, like, some of the best teachers are the people who are still capable of doing the job, right? So, like a business professor who has a successful business versus a business professor who has never started his own business, right? Which one do you think has more credibility and sort of valid wisdom for that area? But I think part of the issue is a lot of people will surround themselves with friends who do not have the same goals as them, and then they will go to those friends for advice about whether or not they should do something, like start a business or something else that might be risky. And almost no one in their circle is going to say yes, or is going to understand the risks of not doing it, right? Because the risks of doing it are very clear, that you could lose money and time and fail and so on. But the risks of not doing it are that you could be filled with regret for decades to come, and that you could always be left wondering what could have been. And those sort of regrets of not doing, they're much harder to conceptualize and give advice around. When you go to someone for advice, they're usually going to be looking at what are the downsides of doing this thing. It's not often that they look at what are the downsides of doing nothing or staying on the safe path, right? Whatever that might be. And I think the other more insidious thing is when people want to sort of hold you back. They might not even be doing this consciously, but it's like they have to find some way to justify their own inaction and lack of risk taking, their own choices, right? So if they tell you to go for it, then they have to admit to themselves that them not going for it when they were younger or whenever was potentially a mistake. But if instead they just advise you, no, don't do it, it's not worth it, it always goes wrong, then they get to sort of sleep soundly at night, justifying their own decision and cementing it, thinking, well, I didn't take the risk and I'm better off for it. And I'm going to keep advising people to do the same. And that's really the issue, right? Like the average person is not doing so well. They're usually in debt. They don't have an emergency fund. They don't have much in terms of savings. They're out of shape, unhealthy, and it's their advice that you're taking. But if you find exceptional people, right, people who are where you want to be, you'll often find that their advice is different. Their advice might be, yes, you should go for it, but think about this or think about that, or here's a blind spot that you might not have considered. Here are some of the risks, here how you can mitigate them. I think that's the other big thing, right? Like people who have succeeded or have failed enough to then succeed will not just tell you don't take risks. They will try to help you mitigate the downsides of those risks so that you can take them in a calculated and beneficial way. So ultimately, it's worth asking yourself, like, what do you want your life to look like? And is your current level of risk going to get you there? And if it's not, you might need to increase the level of risk you're taking. And if you're not willing to take on more risk to get where you want to go, then you may need to consider lowering your standard for what kind of life you want to have. Because any level of success is going to come with some level of risk. It's sort of just the sacrifice that has to be signed. That's the sacrifice you have to make to get wherever you want to go. And the risk doesn't have to be financial. It could be emotional, right? It could be that, well, you have to change some habits, or you have to take the risk that the people around you are going to look at you with disdain or contempt because of what you're choosing to do, whatever it might be. But I can tell you, it's usually worth it. Even if it doesn't work out, you're usually going to be more glad that you did it and found out that it wasn't going to work rather than being left wondering, what if?